Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of See Yourself Grow with Tina. I am Tina Kalura, and for those of you who don't know me, I am a wife, I am a mom, and I try to be a boss at everything that I do. I am the founder and CEO of the See Yourself and Your Business Grow coaching and consulting firm, and I help people get out of their own way and get into results in less than 90 days. I'm an award-winning productivity coach, I'm an author, I'm a speaker, and a business growth consultant. So today I want to talk to you about how to liberate the leadership mindset in you. So how do you develop leadership, the leadership mindset? Well, first off, when I think of leadership, I think we need to do an analysis of our own strengths and our own areas of opportunities, because without doing that, how do we know, what our strengths are and how we can lead others? This will help you identify areas where you can improve. And secondly, you need to be willing to face challenges head on. Leaders with leadership mindset are always looking for ways to learn and grow. And I don't know about you, but I believe that leaders aren't always born, they are made. And they are made through the experiences that they've had throughout their life, the situations that they've been put on, the challenges that they've had to face. Leading by example with the right mindset, I think, is huge in the leadership world. If you're a leader of employees, you want to lead them to high performance. You want to lead them to acknowledging their successes and their areas of opportunity. And you want to set goals for them that that they can achieve. So realistic, attainable goals. And you want to help leaders recognize their impact on the organization or the world. How do we unleash our leadership skills? Well, we need to be purposeful. We need to be purposeful with our thoughts, our actions, and we need to acknowledge and be attentive to how we are interacting with other people and who is observing us as we are interacting, because you never know who's watching. Now, the purpose of life is to be useful, right? To be honorable, to make a difference in people's lives or in organizations. And we want to be of good character. I think that is huge for a leader to embody. Those with leadership mindsets are able to analyze their abilities as well as those of the people around them. I think that is a true reflection of a leadership mindset, recognizing, your strengths and the people around you. So even if we explored mindset and leadership styles, there's so much that we can actually dive into. So I'm not going to do that because I have a special guest who's going to help us dive into that. But a leader with a fixed mindset is likely to invest little or time or energy on improving their own skills, relationships. Leadership mindset is all about leading from within, leading from your heart, leading from your experiences. I know when I became a people leader, I was fairly young, and it was scary to think about. I was 24 when I became a people leader. And at first, I went in with my structure on what I needed to coach on and how I thought I needed to be a leader for these people. And I'll never forget my first coaching session. These employees that I was coaching, they were, a little bit older than me and very experienced and very tenured in the organization. So I went in with, my structure and what I thought the coaching was going to be. And for the first 5 minutes, I went in talking about what I thought the coaching was supposed to be. And the person who I was speaking to was not receptive at all. She was completely quiet. And I then had to look at her and say, what do you want to talk about? And then that changed the whole dynamic of the coaching. And then that's when I learned that, leadership is not about going in with your own agenda. It's helping others identify what their agenda is and helping them unravel what they need to do in order to be a leader in their position or in their life or in their business. So today I have the great pleasure of speaking to Douglas Schur. So Douglas and I met a few years ago when he attended one of my procrastination workshops. And we had the great honor of actually meeting in person this year in New York. So I'm very excited about this live interview because I'm a huge fan of all that Douglas does. So Douglas is a dedicated advocate for personal and organizational growth, fostering trust, transparency, and collaboration. As a keynote speaker, facilitator, and best-selling author of Forged, 6 Practices of Great Leaders in Volatile Times, he illuminates the path to conscious leadership and empowers individuals to thrive in a dynamic environment. Dr. Douglas serves as a lecturer in master degree programs where he shares his expertise and strategic thinking, leadership, and innovation. With a background in information technology leadership and worldwide team development, he brings real world insights to his teachings and research. Dr. Schur diverse research interests encompasses real-time decision-making, adult development, corporate ethics, reflective learning, and mindfulness in organization. He is a qualified teacher in mindfulness-based stress reduction, so MBSR, and champions compassion and leadership presence in all aspects of life and work. So, a prolific author and presenter, Dr. Schur has shared his insights at prestigious international conferences and has authored numerous articles, books, and papers. His latest book, Forged, topped Amazon new release list, showcasing his ability to connect with readers and inspire transformational change. With a long-standing history of lecturing at top-tier universities, Dr. Douglas Schur continues to shape the future of education through innovative thinking, course design, and leadership. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Douglas. Hey, Douglas.
Hi, Tina. How you doing today?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Good, good. I'm out here in California celebrating the 4th of July with my folks.
Amazing. Happy 4th of July to all my American friends and family. Douglas, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview with us today. So let's jump right in. Can you tell us more about what you think about on how to liberate the leadership mindset? What does that mean to you?
You bet. Well, I want to say actually, first going relate it back to something you just said in your story about finding out the lesson of really focusing on the other person, because it's a key piece of it. And that's the empathy part. And in design thinking and product development and product management kind of circles, that part is really about listening. And so much of the leadership model is getting out of your own mind and not only listening to others, but listening to the signals, the data. I mean, all of that stuff is all about listening. But at the end of the day, you still have to make, if you're a leader, you have to make that strategic decision. And you can look at all the data points you want, but at the end of the day, you have to do that. Sometimes you have a lot of information around that, and sometimes you don't. You know, one of the stories I love to tell is about Neil Armstrong landing the lunar module, and he took manual control of it at the last second, you know, just instantaneously, because he saw the computer landing them in a crater of rocks. And the question I get so many times about this intuitive decision-making piece, and I've kind of jumped a couple steps because I'm sure you had some questions for me, but I just get so excited to talk to you.
No, it's good. It's good.
Is that he had so many data points, right? And just like leaders, you get all the data points coming in. You can have all the aggregate numbers coming up, the predictive analytics, the machine learning engines telling you things. But at the end of the day, you have to make the choice to stand up and own that moment and take that joystick in your hand. And there's several ways of coming to that through your expertise and your values and your awareness of the situation. But I get so many times like, but what about data, right? It's such a data age. What about data? I'm like, yeah, Neil Armstrong was an engineer. He wasn't just up there, you know, for fun. They hired him because he was an engineer and an excellent pilot at the same time. And he had all the data coming in. Mission Control's talking to him. The computer's going crazy and giving errors. He's got Buzz Aldrin reading the control stem. He's looking out a window that had graphs sketched into it to see the landing site. At the end of the day, he still had to make his own decision about taking manual control of that thing and landing it perfectly with 30 seconds of fuel left.
Yeah,
So that is, in essence, leadership.
yeah, absolutely. And when you're in that moment, you have to have the capability, you have to have the knowledge, you have to have the confidence to make those kinds of decisions, right? And I think the leadership mindset, like how do we liberate it? How do we tap into it? In your opinion, or maybe you have some examples that you could share with us.
Sure. Well, I think I kind of boil it down to three things. One is flexibility, knowing that perfection is just perception. So people get so, and leaders and just about everyone else get so tied up in doing the perfect answer. I mean, you could search, if you're going to buy something on Amazon, you could search hours and hours to find the exact perfect color and texture and whatever. And it's the same thing with, again, like making decisions or taking action. We could get wrapped up so much in perfection, just have perfection paralysis,
Yeah.
Plus, and this is where the mindfulness piece comes in, is like the level of stress to strive for perfection in a world that is imperfect is off the charts.
Yeah.
As a leader and in organizations and people really look to the leader for the way they're going to act. And the mental health and the stress issues in organizations is just off the roof. There's a wonderful article in Sage Publications from 2023, and if you look at that plus what's in the Gallup polls about engagement, it's just stress, anger, physical, not disability, but
Elements.
yeah, well, yeah. So people's physical being is like being decremented, but the disease, I would call it actually, the level of that is off the charts, and it's not just folks, organizations and HR tend to want to look at that as a work from home thing, which is a huge controversial thing that we probably spent 3 hours on. But what the Gallup polls find is that it's not that. Okay, so if that's one of the things you're looking at in returning to work, what's really the issue is the level, what the leadership is doing in terms of creating an organization. Folks will look to the leader and mimic them as their role models. You find this in other areas. You find it like in, right here in California, just about a couple miles away, it's high fire season and it's fireworks. And of course, big fire started yesterday. And, these fire chiefs that go out there, they role model safety for the folks. So if they're being safe and they're safety conscious, I mean, it's a dangerous job, those guys out there on the front lines with these fires, smoke everywhere. They got to wear masks half the time, and they're in the heat. But the safety is really mimicked from the captain, right, and the commanders. Same thing in organizations. So if you're not taking care of yourself and your mental health and your burnout issues,
Yeah.
Everyone else in your entire organization is going to be burned out, which means what? If you're looking for productivity, you're not getting it. You might be getting people staying up 24 hours and doing stuff, but that doesn't mean that you're getting the best productivity out of them, right? So mental health is a huge thing here. So that's part of the flexibility, is that don't strive for perfection. I mean, you can strive for it, right? I mean, it's not that you don't want to try to get somewhere, but if you are thinking that you're actually going to get that, there's a problem because you're going to be stressed out by not getting there eventually.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's you bring up a very valid point there, Douglas, because I tell everyone, practice doesn't make perfect, it makes progress, right? I think too many people are focused on perfection. I grew up with a perfectionist. I'm married to a perfectionist, so I try my hardest to do things to the best of my ability. And so many times people who act, even though it's not perfect, will get further ahead. Why? Because they're acting and they're taking action. It might not be the perfect action, but they're willing to still put themselves out there and just try, right? And people like me are a little bit less stressed than the perfectionists. Why? Because we're acknowledging that it's not perfect, but we're still putting it out there and we're still moving forward. So I think that's key.
And just to add to your practice, and one of the things I've gotten out of that, because we've had a couple of sessions together, and Tina's an excellent coach, is that there was the paralysis part that we were working on, right? And the procrastination. And one of the things that you taught me, and again, I teach this stuff, but it's hard to do for yourself sometimes without a coach. So even if you know all the stuff, and even if you help folks, sometimes you need someone to help you. And that level of vulnerability is also very tough for leaders.
Yeah.
But is you told me like just take 10 seconds. And it's like consciously I knew that, but having you kind of like walk through that with me and kind of stay on my case to kind of do that kind of stuff. But at the basis of that is that, yeah, it's not going to be perfect. You're just going to reach out and do stuff,
Yeah.
and then you're going to refine it and you're going to do something better. And then you're going to refine it and maybe a step back. So that's why to get stressed out about perfection, again, we want to have goals. We want to have intentions, but once you have a goal, see what happens is it's once you have a goal, that number becomes the thing. And not only is that number some made up number, I mean, it's based on something, but at the end of the day, you've made up the metric. But that number can be limiting because you might think, oh, I got to that number. Now I'm good. But, there may be, reaching for the heavens instead of the stars, It's like that Mary Poppins, there's a Mary Poppins song from Broadway is when you reach for the heavens, you get the stars thrown in. And I feel like when you set that goal, sometimes you set it at the stars instead of for the heavens.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you know what? It's just important, the process, right? And acknowledging you have to be a leader of yourself, right? Like when I say lead from your heart, lead from your mind, lead from your experiences, everything starts with you. And like you said earlier, like if we're not taking care of ourselves, everything else around us is going to fall apart, right? So, can you tell us maybe a success story of you speaking to a group or an organization of something that sticks out for you, some kind of aha moment?
Yeah. Well, I just love the speaking part of my career. That's just taking off like crazy now. But I'll tell you one example is last year in March. So March 2023, I spoke to a large technology annual convention, and I was speaking about engagement and productivity. And and I throw in my mindfulness stuff because I think it is very important. And I was a little concerned, so I thought, here's a bunch of tech guys. I mean, most of them actually were executives, but I thought, I don't know if they're going to be able to relate for some reason. I thought maybe this will be too fluffy because sometimes you get a tech mindset and it's very specific, and sometimes your language that you're going to be writing in or something like that. And so I took them through this journey of, I call it own, allow, acknowledge, which is how to lead your teams to be more engaged. And at the end, I took them through a mindfulness exercise, and I went, well, just going to do it. I'm up here. This is what I do with folks, but I wasn't sure if that particular group was good. And you know what? The whole group you felt the energy in the room just like, whoa, and everyone was quiet, and I had them going through a meditation piece for about 5 minutes, and the entire energy of the room changed. And I thought, and not only did I think, but people were coming up to me all day, finding me in the hall and saying, like, I took this message back already. People were calling their teams and saying, we have to think of this, this engagement piece differently. We have to think of productivity differently. And I thought, wow, there's such an important piece of work to do here with folks, with leaders, and even tech folks can click into this. And oh my gosh, tech folks are totally stressed out, whether you're a leader or not. I mean, the pressures to get things done right away, in new languages and new realms, and and with clients that don't have time to talk to about what they really want half the time, it's extremely stressful. So, and there's a lot of fields like that, but bringing this message out and seeing the reaction made me really think that this is a message that has to get out there for more.
Absolutely. And kudos to you for doing that, because again, you are thinking, okay, it's a technology conference. I don't know if they're going to enjoy this, but you did it anyway, right? You acted and look at the result, right? So that's awesome. So good. Now, my next question, you kind of answered it earlier, but I was going to ask, what are 3 tips that you could share with people today, so that they could start implementing their leadership mindset? You spoke about flexibility. You spoke about, the perfection thing. Is there anything else that you can give people today?
Well, the other 2 points are agency and transformation.
Mm.
So I kind of think of it as like flexibility plus agency will bring transformation. And I want to start with the transformation piece because, my doctoral research is in transformative learning and looking at how the life journey of executives like impacts the way they think about leadership, and then also how they bring succession and mentoring to the next generation, which is just so important in this age where leaders just I don't want to call it whining, but it kind of is about Gen Z and how they're not engaged and how they don't align with the mission and they don't align with the vision. And they constantly like, well, there's a reason for that. Part of it is leadership. Part of it is like, our company's loyal to you. I mean, they've seen their parents laid off, Great Recession, all that. So, so part of that is reconnecting with them at a personal level and leading them in ways that show that not to show them, but to be a person who is trustworthy, who is working off their values, who is bringing a mental health and no burnout or less burnout at least mindset to your organization. Now, there are acute problems in organizations, just like if you're in an emergency room and someone's bleeding to death, you're not really thinking like, oh, what's the strategy of the hospital this year, to make money. So, when you have an acute problem, you certainly have to focus and you have to make quick decisions. And again, that's what Neil Armstrong had to do when he landed the thing. But then there are longer term strategies. And what happens is when we get into this like perfection piece, and when we have the pressures all around us, to me, that's very stakeholders of, the board and the shareholders and all those kind of guys that have a stake in the business. The stress levels become problematic for creating strategic decisions. So what happens is, and I've seen this over and over again, strategic decision makers at the high levels feel like they have to rush out of this very important piece of creating strategic thinking, which is taking a bunch of different ideas, letting it kind of germinate like a great, what I want to say, like pasta sauce, it's you want to let it like cook for a little while, but they more often than not feel like they have to rush because of the pressures coming in. So what shouldn't be an acute problem becomes an acute problem. So you create that quick decision where you don't have to. We're kind of set up for this fight or flight piece. That's supposed to last like 20 minutes, but in business and organizations today, we're just constantly under fire drills. So we're, that cortisol level is like off the roof all the time. That's not where our bodies are supposed to. That's one of the reasons of the body breakdown. So there's the flexibility, the agency part. I think of you're the commander of your own ship. So again, with Neil Armstrong, he's the commander. He had to make a last minute decision with just a minute of fuel left. Do I go for a more scientific site to land in, or do I go for a site that's going to keep me and Buzz safe? Buzz Aldrin, not Buzz Lightyear. And so he made the safe decision. And this comes out if you look at the postmortem, from NASA. It's in the transcript. So he's bringing out his values in that, right? But he had to be in touch with those values already to be able to bring them up. And then the last piece is the transformation and growth. And this is kind of the toughest piece because, in transformative learning, one of the ways, one of the questions that gets asked is, well, how do you know someone's had a transformation? And one of the ways of looking at it is saying, someone's had a transformation if they've had a perspective shift from which they cannot return. It's almost like a revelation or an aha moment in some ways, but something that can't be unseen or can't be undone in your life. And leaders are having these a lot because as you let these new ideas in and you're trying new things, and again, you're taking yourself out of procrastination, is that also another model of like opening people up just to try new things, not worrying about so much about perfection, but moving forward in progress, like you were talking about. That can be a very, very scary thing for a lot of folks because they have their way of succeeding, whether it's the best way of succeeding or not, already kind of locked down for many years. So they keep repeating that. So one thing is you can't really keep repeating your past successes, because 10, 20 years later, you don't even have a competitive product anymore. There's the I'll tell you quickly, the case study of Kodak. They invented the digital camera, and the CEOs of the time were like, we're making our money off of selling film and chemicals. Why am I going to risk the stakeholders disappointment by moving into this new thing? And they just shifted it offshore for some other offshore company to kind of take over. They gave it a new name, and that was the end of it, and Fujifilm took it over. If they would have sat with it a little longer and been able to take the risk and ask for help, right? So like, I reached out to you. I was like, I know I'm kind of stuck here, even though I've gotten in my mindset, but for some reason I can't get past my own, thoughts process about it, or my own successes. Yeah. And you, sorry, there's a fire going here, so I got a little bit of smoke stuff going on. But asking for help, just did that tipping point, to really open up a lot of things I'd been working on already. So asking for help is key, and that's a vulnerability component to leadership.
Yeah, huge. It's like all three of those points, Douglas, all resonate with me. I was smirking because every time you said that, I can resonate with it, and I can actually think about the moment that those pivotal moments that transformed me, or I helped transform someone else. It resonates with me. So Douglas, tell us briefly about what you got going on. Is there anything that you can share with us about some new adventures that you got?
Yeah, well, so the core part of my work now is speaking to leaders about strategies to avoid burnout or come back from burnout, and then using that not only to make their life more easeful, but also to make more strategic and clear decisions. The other thing is, and I'll be launching this most likely next week, is this piece called Pitch to Me. So for many decades, I've been teaching in the master's programs, the leadership program, a specific one called the Technology Management Executive Program at Columbia University. And looking at so many pitches from students who have gone on to actually create companies off these things. And what I've seen so much of is not only tweaking the decks. I mean, that's really important. And there's some very, very simple things to make a much better deck and a much better storyline out of that. I don't think people think as much about the storyline as they need to, but also the presence that they bring to it. I've seen some amazing talks. I mean, believe me, they're like amazing students there, but I've also seen some mistakes. People leaning on the podium and thinking it's a big casual thing in front of a jury. These juries are supposed to represent almost like venture capitalists, if they're looking for money, and it's a good chance to practice, but come in too cash, but then I'll tell you, one of the most amazing ones I saw was after a full day and the jurors were kind of burnt out, and she came in and she totally connected. And this woman was talking about a technology that I for some reason knew about it, because when I was younger, I had actually worked in an engineering site with this very specific thing, but no one else in the room knew about it. But she connected on what it was going to do and how it was going to change the world, instead of going deep into the technology itself. Mm-hmm. And that just brought everyone in to support her. So there's some just little things you can do. And I want to, after doing 20 years of like looking at, so many of these decks and presentations, I'm bringing that out to the real world now and coaching other folks outside the program.
I love it. Oh, it's amazing. So I'm excited to see that launch, Douglas. Congratulations on all your success on the journey. I look forward to continuing on that journey with you as well, to see how that goes. So if people want to learn more about you and what you got going on, what's the best way that people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, to get in touch directly, you can DM me in LinkedIn, or my email's on the screen there. Douglas.Scheer@columbia.edu is the best email. You can also visit my website, douglasscheer.com. And also, well, actually, that's the best way. I don't want to give you, I don't want to overload folks' ways to get to me, but those two ways are probably the best.
Okay, excellent. So we'll be putting all your contact information both on Facebook, LinkedIn, actually, and on YouTube as well. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, they can. So Douglas, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for all your insights, all your expertise. Love hearing you speak, and so just thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right, so I'm just going to wrap things up. Feel free to hang out backstage, Douglas. And if you got to go, I totally understand. But again, heartfelt thank you to you, and enjoy the rest of your 4th of July.
Thank you.
All right, so there you have it, everyone. Please take advantage of all that Douglas has to offer. Connect with him if you are a leader or you just want to tap into your leadership mindset, or if you want to learn more about his Pitch to Me venture that he is going to be launching fairly soon. So for me, I am in the midst of my 5-week See Your Leads Grow challenge. So it was a 5-day challenge, but the feedback that I got was it was too much in 5 days. So now I'm doing a teaching moment every week. And then every week I'm following up with the members of that community to ensure that they're doing their homework, to answer any of their questions, and to ensure that they're following up with me on their deliverables. So that is going really well. I know that, it is summer and a lot of people are taking time off. So I'm not launching another masterclass anytime soon, but I am going to tell you, I think I'm going to launch a procrastination workshop in August. So look out for that because let's face it, procrastination is something that we all do. Just some of us do it better than others and get stuff done. So I also want to give a shout out to my interior designer, my husband, and my contractor who helped build this beautiful office that I'm in. After 5 years, I finally get my own home office. I'm so excited. So thank you, Jack. Thank you, Eddie. And thank you, Linda Adams. I'll be tagging all of you in this live as well. But I just wanted to show my gratitude that, it's wonderful to have your own space. All right, everyone. So that's it for today. I, as always, look forward to seeing you and your business grow. If you are a coach, a consultant, or a small business owner and you would like to be featured on my social media platforms, please reach out, direct message me if you have any questions, or if you're stuck, if you need help getting stuff done, if you are struggling and you know that you need help, but you're too afraid to ask for it, feel free to direct message me with any of your questions. Happy to help. All right. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day and happy 4th of July. And that's it for today. Bye.